Well, good afternoon and welcome to Honister. My name's Dale, and as you may have guessed by this point, I'm the tour guide. Now, there's been underground mining here at Honister for the last 600 years. We do believe, though, the Romans were the first to start extracting slate from here, but they were simply picking it off the surface. But they were making roofing slate out of it. Now, I have got very good documentation for the last 300 years, so unless I tell you otherwise, I'm talking about the last 300 years. Now, if you look at the top of the hill, you just make out on the horizon a building. Well, that's a coffin. And they're very important to slate mining.
You couldn't chuck me in as easy as I could chuck you in.
True, yeah, true. Now, all these big lumps of rock you can see laying around in here, these are all slates. And they're what's known as clogs. Now, they form naturally into these sizes when we blast out. I'll explain why inside. Now, today we bring these down with that truck. There, it's very simple. The truck's got a crane on. We pick it up, drop it in the back, drive it down. But until the 1930s, they weren't bothering to bring the slates down. That's because they didn't have nice little trucks with big telescopic arms on. So lugging 4 ton of rock down from the top would have been fairly difficult. And also they were only getting paid for finished roofing slates. Now, since that was only between 4 and 8%, why bother bringing down 90% odd of waste that you're not getting paid for? So they didn't bother. They'd make the roofing slates up there. So all that rubble you can see laying on that hillside there, Fleetworth, that is all waste from the slate mining. And if you think all those little pieces have been made by man, a lot of rubble. Now you can see that these few bits here have got flat sides on. Well, they've been cut in half with a circular saw, big diamond saw. And as you can see, this one is full of cracks. You can see very easily where the wet patches are, that's cracks. And that bit is not connected at all. That bit was there until I trod on it. So if you're going to make roofing slate out of this one, it wouldn't work very well because there's loads of cracks in it. So we've not bothered giving it to Martin because he'd give it to us back again. So what this one will be when we've got a spare 10 minutes or something like that, plant pot, candlestick holder, a coaster or two, depending on how it cracks up, when we start to chop it up will depend what we make out of it. We do not waste anything these days. We use nearly 100%, even down to the dust. The dust and the clay that settles in the bottom of that pond, we scoop out periodically, send it to a company at Penrith who dry it out in a kiln, and then they mix it with resin and it makes a plaster which they then cast into the models we sell in the shop. So we don't waste anything these days. Now, before we go into the mine, there's one other type of rock we need to look at, and that's that bit over there. Now, other than pieces of rock that visitors have dropped in our car park, this is the only piece that we know of that is not slate. This is a lump of what's known as the sill. Now, the sill has 2 important jobs in slate mining, which I'll explain when we're inside. But if you look at this side, it's got red patches. That's actually iron ore. So if you compare the colour of that to the colour of the slate over there, you can tell it's very different. You can also see that we've cut down this side with a diamond saw. Now, these saw blades we can get 2,000 hours out of or more cutting slate. That's about a year's worth of cutting. Cutting those few cuts there wore the blade out. At one point we're going to chop it up into lumps like this, polish it up, looks very nice. But £2,500 a saw blade, and then all the polishing equipment it would have worn out, it wasn't going to be cost effective. Now, our saws, you don't actually buy a whole new one when they're worn out, you actually just buy the diamond tips, which the braid's on. Kind of form of very high temperature soldering. Now, these tips cost £12 each. Now, they re-tipped this small saw in there the other week, and that used 74 tips. £12 a piece plus fitting. Diamond saws aren't cheap. Now, we're going to make our way up now. No need to rush, take your own time. Follow me. Well, it's so popular, we're on target to sell 12,000 tonnes this year. Now, what we do is, for the last 600 years of mining, they've been creating 90% of waste, which they've simply dumped on the hillside, or in our case there's a big pile of it on the top. You can't see it from here, but there's an old quarry on the top, and there's an equally big pile of the stuff. So what we do is we have a JCB at the top, a big truck drives up, JCB scoops it up, dumps it in the back, 20 tonne at a time, and we drive it down. Then once we get it to the bottom, we run it through a machine that makes little pieces out of it and sorts it into the different sizes. That's what those huge piles of the stuff are there. So in effect, we're actually recycling. Now our remote location works against us even today. Because we're sending about 3 or 4 Arctic loads of that stuff out a week, that's not including stuff that's on pallets. If we started bringing up shack loads of Arctics, the locals would get very annoyed because you probably all drove up and you know the roads aren't exactly big. So what we do is we take it out with that tractor and trailer down to Freckeld, where there's an old iron ore quarry, which means there's loads of space. Now Freckeld is also on the A66. Now lorries on the A66 is acceptable, that's what it's there for. So we take it out by tractor and trailer to Freckeld, and then our lorries collect it from there and take it all over the country. And as I said, we're on target to sell 12,000 tonnes. That's just bulk. I don't know what the total figure is with people collecting it in the cars, the occasional tonne or two to landscape companies around here. I do not know how many tonnes we sell in a year. Now that site over there, that's Crags, and that is part of this mining complex. We still do have the mineral rights for that. That was mined up until the mid-1950s. Unfortunately, 3 men were killed in separate incidents in short succession. So the men refused to go in unless the owners made it safe. So the owners called in some experts. And those of you that have called in electricians, plumbers and such like, you know that experts cost a lot. It was going to cost more than the owners were prepared to pay to make the site safe. So the 20 or so men that were over there were simply moved over to this side. Now there is still some very good slate over there. It is actually the same slate seam as this side. Because before the last ice age, when a giant glacier came through here and carved this valley some 2 or 3 million years ago, that side was connected to that side, so it's the same slate. And there's still some good slate over there. And with modern mining techniques, we could open the site up fairly quickly. But we've got enough over here to keep us busy for the moment. Now before the mist descends, which it's going to do again, you have to work around it in this terrain. If you don't like the weather, wait a minute. You can see that there's a line from the bottom or the top, or from the top to bottom, depending where you're looking. That's an external incline system. So if you keep that picture in your head to make what we see inside a bit clearer. I'll come back to inclines later in the talk. Now you can also see dry stone walls. Well, they're called adits, and that's the levels into the mine. Now, do you all know the difference between a quarry and a mine?
Yeah, one's underground.
Correct. Quarry's a big hole above ground, mine's a big hole underground. Well, do you know what a drift mine is?
Oh, it's got water in it.
Not quite.
You're walking from the side?
Correct, you walk in from the side. In a conventional mine, such as most coal mines, you go down in a little car, down a shaft. Or you can go up as well, depends. Well, in slate mining, you go in on levels. We don't go down shafts, we don't go up any. Although our level happens to be at the top of the hill, not at the bottom. But you can't choose where your slate is. Right, if we walk up a bit further, you will be pleased though, not the road to the left. The nice flattish road to the right. Although if you were going up to the top level, you would go left. But if you go up there, you take a long road.